Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our opportunity to speak with two men who have had a very busy week about coming together, joining forces to shift the impact community forever. My name is Erin Skillen. I'm the Director of Marketing at Spring, and before we get started, say that I'm coming from Victoria, which are the unceded territories of the Saanich and Lekwungen speaking peoples. We are dedicated to truth and reconciliation at Spring and encourage you to dive into what we can all be doing to be to engage in reconciliation efforts. I am here to bring to you Keith and Marlon, who are going to talk about their week. So let's bring them in right now. On top of everything that's happened with Spring, Marlon and I were also individually at the Beyonce concert this week. So it was a very big week. Keith sent his regrets to Queen Bay. Yeah, let's just start by, I want to hear from you both. How's your week been? Whoever wants to go first. Marlon, you're up.
Okay, well, I did start my week at the Beyonce concert, as you mentioned. So my week started off really strong, and it's been just going up since then. So it's been a really exciting week. I think, we are all just so thrilled about the partnership and about the opportunity to actually tell the world about the partnership. So, it's been an incredible, thrilling, busy, crazy, chaotic, awesome week.
Yeah. Keith, how do those words resonate with you?
Yeah, I mean, aside from the fact that I missed an incredible concert, it's been a fantastic week, and I think really an opportunity for us to hear from what people are, saying, what they're thinking, how they're responding to it. The opportunity to bring Marlon and Future Capital into the Spring family is for us, I think it's just such a profound opportunity for us, and I've known Marlon now for about 10 years, and so for me, I'm just thrilled with the opportunity to work with him. Yeah.
That's a really good segue into how did this all start? How did this conversation first begin in terms of bringing these two amazing organizations together?
Well, as I said, Marlon and I have known each other for a number of years now, and we've been a huge fan and really cheerleader of Future Capital since it launched. We've had the opportunity to collaborate in support of women investors across Canada when Future Capital was doing one of their cross Canada tours to capacity build and empower women investors. And so for us, I think that was a great opportunity for us to get to know each other more as two organizations and really expand how we've known each other. And really, as we sat down over the holidays talking about what was going on in 2024, that was the conversation, that was the spark that led us to today. And as we shared our visions for a more equitable investing community in Canada, for more equitable access to capital, I think we really saw the opportunity. But Marlon, would love your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed back to December of last year, because I think it's important for people to understand that these partnerships don't happen overnight. There's a lot of consideration, and I actually feel, and Keith, tell me if I'm stepping out of line, I feel like these partnerships, there's like almost like a dating period where you're kind of getting to know each other's organizations and seeing if there's a fit, if there's a spark, and it's been many months of planning and strategy and ultimately just finding alignment and it's been a really incredible process, because in that process, I think both Keith and I and Caroline and the organizations have been able to really understand what the opportunity that this partnership presents actually looks like in its entirety.
And Marlon, what's it like? Because you've been kind of running Future Capital. It's been your baby. What's it like to take that baby and kind of like, let's share. Let's share. What was that process like for you?
I mean, it's still in process, and I think it's something that will continue for some time. I think it's a really unique experience, I have to tell you. Like, it's, we've all started new jobs before. We've all left, organizations in the past, but this is something completely different. And I think Honestly, for me, the only reason that I took interest in this opportunity was because of Keith and Caroline and the great people at Spring. It was the people, and so for me, that has been the through line from day one. And so that has made what is ultimately a really challenging process. There's like separation anxiety, right? Because it is really like a child that you like gave birth to, a business baby, and so that process has been made so much more comfortable, and I've been so supported by the team. And so that's been a real boom. But I have to tell you, like, and if there are any entrepreneurs, watching this, I think you can't prepare yourself for what it's like to, integrate your company into something else. But what you can do to make that process seamless or easier is find a company and people that are really, really mission aligned with what you're trying to do.
And then you find yourself on the cover of Report on Business in the Globe and Mail. That can't have been too shabby.
Yeah, we did not expect that, right, Keith? I mean, we were really excited about this announcement, and put a lot of thought into how we were going to share this partnership with the world, and folks were really interested in telling that story with us. So we were really, really excited. I was super excited. It's a little weird. It's a little weird.
Yeah.
But it's so awesome. It's such a good week.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you were talking earlier about, for the entrepreneurs that are listening, this process of telling the story of an acquisition, of bringing two companies together. You don't know how people are going to react, and I think for us, it's also a bit of a testament when you put your heads down, you're working, like you're just getting stuff done every day, every week, every month, every year. Sometimes you don't know how much word has spread about what you're doing and the impact you're creating. And so, like, to your point, Marlon, I think we're just very thankful. Jeff Jones from Globe and Mail did a fantastic job on the piece, and just really thankful as well for James Matthews from Vancouver Tech Journal and BetaKit and Techcouver. Like, we've just had so many people who, Robert Lewis over at Techcouver. Like, we just had such a great response, and I think for me, it is a testament to what we're trying to do. But it's a little bit humbling at the same time,
And Keith is experiencing all of this from Sarajevo, so that's surreal. And then Carolyn would love to be here. She was a big part of this as well, our other co-CEO, but she is in Asia, probably in the middle of the night right now, so she's not with us today. But
yeah, I just so you know, I had a sign off from her 5 minutes ago. She's in Hanoi, and just as an aside, like, I'll just say this to Marlon live, like, while we're here, but I think Marlon's about to gain a bunch of air miles as we come together, because what Future Capital's been doing has phenomenal global implications, right? And so we've had the good fortune of working in 60 communities around the world, and so so really excited to have Marlon show from the rooftops, especially if the rooftops are in Sarajevo. I'm here to tell you, it's amazing.
Well, honestly, that's such a big part of what makes the partnership make sense. And I'm sorry if I'm like getting ahead of your next question.
You can say whatever you want.
I think I started Future Capital just over 3 years ago, and we've had incredible impact, and we've been able to reach so many investors, so many founders, but this outfit is, this new outfit at Spring is going to enable us to take it to so many new places and so many new people. And that is, I don't think I've fully appreciated like how exciting that is yet.
So let's talk about that a bit. So we've spoken about previously, I've had the pleasure of talking with you both about the interconnections between DEI and impact, because Marlon, am I correct in understanding Future Capital wasn't necessarily impact focused specifically? It was about reaching out to underrepresented groups to bring them into investment, bring them into startups. Tell me about the interconnections now between DEI and impact that you're now going to be carrying through the impact sector.
Yeah, I think Keith and I and Caroline and I have so much to like share and educate each other on, and that's the beauty of this partnership. Honestly, I think
Yeah, well said.
we have done, I think, independently really good work on two sides of the aisle, right? Like diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't think anyone I know doesn't understand how important that is, and impact. I mean, there's actually no denying it at this stage that we really need to take a different approach to how we do everything, but especially how we build and run our economy. And so I think there's this really interesting intersection between people and planet that we are really well poised to investigate and to really drive solutions forward within. So I think that intersection is something that honestly was off my radar a year ago, and it's not that I didn't understand that an intersection exists, but we were so focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion that that the idea of like bringing this into an impact outfit wasn't even on my radar in the moment that Keith and I had that conversation in December. I started thinking wow, what could we do if we took our mission and blended it with something that was really focused on creating a better world.
Yeah, well said. I think sometimes for me, when we're having a conversation about impact, so often people will go to like a sector or a problem to solve first. And so often it's like, climate solutions, solve the climate problem, or, how do we create a sustainable food sector? Or, so we often, and what happens is we often will go to industry. But the reality is that if we want to change the world, we have to include everyone. This can't just be done by a small subset of the population. And so when we think about the fact that, of course, first and foremost, half the planet are women or women identifying. And so yet when we think about participation in the economy, participation as investors, participation as GPs and funds, participation and access to capital, it is way underrepresented. And so for us, while we have done work on a sector basis at Spring, it's actually DEI and the work that Marlon has been doing that is so profound. We have big aspirations for entering the U.S. market. Some incredible challenges there around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we can bring people to participate equally in all parts of the economy, right? Not just creating climate solutions, but being investors, being entrepreneurs, participating in community, that's actually where it's going to happen. So I think for me, this has really been about broadening an understanding of impact to be beyond sector, but to be thematic and to be much more representative of the planet that we live on. Yeah.
And on an individual level, Marlon, what have you seen in this kind of work in terms of changing lives, changing families, changing communities?
I mean, it's been, I really truly believe that early stage investing is like the best kept secret within our economy. I really do believe that, because if you do it well, you can really produce returns that open up the door for generational wealth. And I think, oh my gosh, there's so many. I'm going to point to a company that I did not invest in. I met this company early on, but they have had like such a huge impact. The company's called Smart Suites, and it's run by Tara Bosch. And I'm smiling because I'm sure everybody on the call knows Smart Suites or has tried it.
Celebrity status now, I think.
100%. Yeah. And so I met Tara when I was running an accelerator program many years ago. And I think she's such a perfect example of what it means to be an underestimated founder. She was 22 at the time. She's a woman, and she's like sparkly as hell. She's so sweet, and people did not take her seriously. Not everybody, but the conventional investors, I don't think, jumped at the opportunity to invest in this healthy candy company. And I think her success is such it's so emblematic of what's possible. Like it really is. I think you look at someone like Tara, and just for anyone that hasn't followed the trajectory of that company, they sold Smart Suites in 4 years for $360 million. And that's life changing for everybody that was involved in that deal. Everyone. Like,
and
yeah.
And Marlon, I just want to add something. For a lot of people, if you want to understand the impact that can be created when you create an equitable economy, not only did Tara sell her business in a short period of time for a lot of money, but since then she has contributed as a mentor, as an advisor, as an individual angel investor, and she's actually, Marlon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's even launched a fund recently,
like a funding initiative, yeah.
Correct. And so the point being, like, she continues to impact the market post acquisition, and so I think it's a great example.
Totally.
And there are so many underestimated founders out there. So many, like, just as a woman and founder, I have experienced enough, and I'm a white woman, so I've got that layer of privilege protecting me, but oh my gosh. So I'm excited to see this. There's a lot of pressing issues out there in terms of foundership and investment, but also the world as a whole. So how is these two organizations and sort of getting out of the silos and working together? How do you see that as being a solution that perhaps other organizations can look to as we try to tackle really large issues as quickly as possible? Keith, do you want to take that one?
I'll kick it off, but I would love for Marlon to chime in. I think there's a few things that come into play here. Spring as an organization, we have, first and foremost, with all humility, I think we have the best team in the world. And so our team's ability to go out into the market and provide phenomenal programs, support, and capacity building for investors and entrepreneurs is for me, it's still mind blowing. And so I think that, to me, is like part of the nucleus of what we do. We help to catalyze people, we empower them, and we help them to move, and we help them to act, right? And what Marlon has done is he's created an absolutely phenomenal community that is backed by education. And so there's this really interesting dynamic where Marlon's relational approach and Spring's programmatic approach, I think, become the perfect marriage. Because when people step into this world of impact entrepreneurship, impact investing, creating a more equitable economic ecosystem, the reality is that they will come in at different points in time. Some of us want community first. Some of us need the mutual support right away. Some of us actually need to be empowered by education up front. Some people are ready to write a check. Some people actually need to learn first before they write a check. All of these are appropriate places for people to start. And I think by coming together, we're really trying to make sure that regardless of where people are on their journey, they're able to say, this is where I can start. But at the same time, they can meet the family that is now our collective community and say, this is my community. This is my family, in impact investing and in impact entrepreneurship. And I think that's where I think the amplification is going to come. But Marlon, would love your perspective as well.
Yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about kind of where we meet our, in our communities, our community members at. And so the whole, idea, purpose, vision around Future Capital 3 years ago when I started it was, it was one of those stories where, I was creating a product for myself, essentially, right? So I had spent a few years working in VC, and before that, VC and accelerators, and there was so much like basic language that I just didn't understand, that went over my head, or in the moment I wasn't really certain of what was being implied or what was being communicated. And so I wanted to create something that made it easier for people to just break into this industry, like no matter what direction they're going. So if they're an angel investor, limited partner, they want to launch a fund, like we wanted to just create an entry point into the early stage investing industry. And so that's kind of where we start, and that's where we start with our programs and with a lot of our messaging and our education. And I think we have opened the door for a lot of new and emerging investors that really, it's just blends so seamlessly into what Spring has been doing over the past couple of years with impact investing and the Impact Investor Challenge. And so there's this like through line from an educational standpoint that is really important to us. And I think just to underline kind of what Keith was saying is, for us, like for me, education and community are like binded. They're totally binded. I think especially when it comes to underrepresented groups and financial literacy, like in that particular instance, I think you really need community to be a component. Otherwise, you run a really high risk of just alienating people really fast with like terminology and not understanding their background and what they're bringing into the conversation. So for me, community and education are one.
Hmm. Oh, Aaron, you're on mute.
That happens. I was having a sip of water. Very important to stay hydrated when you're busy. Tell me about the vision. What does the big picture look like moving forward? When will you know this has been successful?
Wow, such a great question, Aaron. Aaron, Marlon, I'm gonna make a comment, a couple of comments maybe, and have you respond. But when Spring started almost 10 years ago, we said, hey, we want to change the world through innovation, and for us, that's a big, bold vision, and we really saw it as a 25-year vision. And so, almost 10 years later, we're 10 years in on a 25-year vision. I think what I can see now with the combined forces of Marlon and Future Capital and Spring is an acceleration of that path, because we're actually including everyone. And so as a part of this vision, we're really going to be reaching farther into Canada. First and foremost, we are going to be in Atlantic Canada in the fall and 2024. So we're kicking off in Atlantic Canada with Spring's programming, which really is on the backs of the work that Marlon and Future Capital have already done in the region. We're doing several programs across Canada. We're looking at market entry into the US. These are some of the things that are helping us to build this momentum. I'm sitting in Sarajevo in Bosnia right now, meeting with impact investors and having, for example, tomorrow morning, having breakfast with an impact investor here in town who's looking to change the world. And by the way, shout out to Helena, who asked the question about thoughts on the Croatian market. I would say Croatian market, Western Balkans, everybody underestimate them at your peril. Absolutely phenomenal entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, innately impact. And I would say that the female founders in this ecosystem really punch above their weight. So just a minor shout out there. So I'll throw it over to back to Marlon now.
Yeah, I think just on a personal level, I really want to redefine what it means to be an early stage investor entirely. So I think step one is inviting people into this ecosystem and inviting them to put their thumb on the scale. And then step two is really developing, expertise, knowledge around this asset class. And then what comes after that is really exciting, because it means just changing the way we do it. Like we there are, lots of opportunities for us to do a better job supporting companies. Just economically, there are, more equitable ways to do this, but you can't do it from outside. Like, you can't do it if you don't know how it's even being done today. So I think that's a big, goal on my radar. And I think the beauty in that is doing that with an impact lens. It just deepens what's possible, and it deepens the impact that we can have over time together.
Amazing. We're getting low on time here. I would love to hear, are there any final thoughts that you want to share with everyone here about this big, exciting moment before they carry on with their day and their weekend?
Marlon, over to you first.
Yeah, I mean, come talk to us. I think we really want to, go deeper with people and talk about, what this partnership means, what we're up to this year, what we're planning for 2024. So yeah, come say hi. I mean, if you said hi this week, I probably won't get back to you. But, yeah, give me like another week or two. But yeah, really, I think we really want to talk to the ecosystem and hear what's happening out there. It's a really interesting time in venture, to say the least. So I think that makes programs and organizations like ours even more important as educators. So yeah, reach out for whatever you need, and yeah, let's start a conversation.
Yeah. Marlon, I think, from my perspective, such a great call to action. The other thing that I would say here is, Spring and Future Capital have come together, and we're talking about the potential, but really, like, no one can do this alone. We can't do this alone. And so if this is a movement that you're passionate about, a movement for equitable investing, a movement for equitable innovation and entrepreneurship, moving the dial on access to capital for underrepresented founders, then we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to talk to you, and we would love your help. And so for me, I think that's really powerful. And I just want to make one closing comment, Aaron, which for everybody who's on the call, if you can get your hands ready on the keyboard, if you'll notice in chat, Vanessa has commented, and Vanessa, this is her first week at Spring. So if everybody would give her a nice hearty welcome.
Welcome,
Vanessa,
Vanessa.
we're thrilled to have you with us. So excited to have you.
Our team is pretty amazing. It's so much fun. So great. So we, in all of the excitement, we have also launched a new Spring website, spring.is. But Marlon, we have future capital programming on there. If you want to join the wait list, you can do that on there. But tell us a bit about what you'll also be doing with our Impact Investor Challenges. If anyone wants to get involved as an investor to support women-led companies, climate tech, our health, you are going to be a due diligence coach. So what is a due diligence coach for those who don't know?
Yeah, so I'll be coaching and stick handling due diligence through this multi-week matchmaking program, essentially. So it's an Impact Investor Challenge, and I'll be working with a group of impact investors, leading them through the diligence process, and really, supporting their learning. I actually think early stage investing, like angel investing, VC, it's an apprenticeship business, and so this exact exchange is the kind of exchanges I get really, really excited for. So yeah, I'm super excited to be participating.
Amazing. Thank you both for being here today. I know it's been a very, very busy week, and you were very articulate. So congratulations on retaining the majority of your brain cells. I don't know if I could say the same here, but that's okay. Yeah. I'll learn from you I'll learn from you. But as mentioned, yes, please go and check out our new website, and it will continue to grow and flourish in the coming month. So lots of exciting things on there, lots of exciting opportunities to get involved. If you're not already on our newsletter, you are missing out. You need to go and sign up. With that said, thank you to everyone again, and have an amazing rest of your day, and go forth and create awesome. Bye.
Awesome.